anxiety about the unknown.
I could hear the steps.
He had all
walking up
black
the stairs.
eyes. There was no
All of a sudden, this
in
huge
his eyes.
object with lights was on top
And it
of
made
us.
no sound.
The fear. Yes, this happened.
And the person who was calming the baby starts to go up the stairs. And I could still hear that shh, 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 shh. She starts to go up the stairs, and my room was just in front of the stairs because it was impossible for me to confuse the sound of how the stairs sound. The sound came directly to me.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Yes, This Happened. Today we bring you the impressive story of two brothers, Julia and Pedro, high school students in Mexico City who some years ago witnessed inexplicable events at their residence. The story begins shortly after moving into a condominium in an upper middle class area of Mexico City.
So all this started when I was a little younger, around 15 or 16 years old. And we moved to another house. We lived in the state of Mexico, in Atizapán de Zaragoza. And we rented a house in a horizontal condominium. I am really very skeptical in many things. I always try to find an explanation and all that. Well, what happened here was really something important, something that really leaves you with a memory.
We moved around a lot, so we ended up in this house. It was a very nice house. There were 8 little houses together. My mother loved the idea of living there. We lived there for no more than a year, and everything was normal at the beginning. But when we had about 6 months living there, my mom took us to eat, or something like that. We came back. So to open my room, I had to kind of look inside because the door lock was not very good. So I tried to insert a key to open it. And suddenly I saw like a flash. I saw how the TV turned on, but it seemed super strange to me because I know I didn't imagine it. And I thought, surely I left it on. So we went into the room, I turned it off, and I started just doing my things. And my brother came in and sat on the bed.
I come into her room, I sit on her bed, and suddenly the television turns on. So that surprised us. My sister stares at me.
Then the two of us just thought, no, it can't be. So I told him to get up. I thought he had sat on the remote.
I stand up and I start looking for the remote. We take the cover off to see if it had any batteries.
We found the remote, and yes, it was inside the sheets. And we opened the back cover, and it had no batteries.
Besides, it turned on and there was nothing in the channel. It just had the noise where completely, what's it called? The static. And I take off the cover to check the batteries and it had no batteries. So that's where it started, like the curiosity of being aware of what's happening.
Maybe things had happened before, but that was like the moment we started to notice that something was weird. Then some time passed, and every night the TV would turn on, and then I said, maybe the electricity goes up or down, or something strange is going on with the electric panel. So after a while, I began to hear sounds on the walls. My walls were covered with wallpaper for like a child. So I started hearing sounds in the walls, and I imagined that maybe they were like animals or rats or something. And I started to spray bug spray, but nothing stopped it. I kept hearing things in the walls all the time. My TV kept turning on. So one day I went with my grandma and said, help me, what do I do?
My grandmother gave her a bottle of holy water. She put it in her room and certain things stopped happening.
So that was really strange, right? And my brother had told me something, not very detailed, but he told me something that had happened to him.
Julia and Pedro have been experiencing paranormal activity since moving into their condo. And it seems that whatever is causing these events has not yet reached its full potential.
Yes, this happened.
Julia, Pedro, and their mother have settled into their new condominium in Mexico City. But the unsettling experiences they've had so far pale in comparison to what is about to happen. And it starts one night that Julia and her mom leave the house to run errands.
We left one night, and he stayed home. It was around 6:30.
I had homework to do. I stayed doing my homework.
So it was getting dark, and he began to hear like a lady.
And I suddenly start to hear a mother calming down a child, like the typical shh, calm down, everything will be fine. Calm down, shh, and so on. But it happened a lot. Our neighbors, the one next door, had just had a child. The wife was normally at home, she didn't work, and the man was never at home, the husband. And since the house was very, very close together, you could clearly hear someone in the house next door to the patio side. So I assumed that the lady was talking to her baby and was calming her down. So about 20 minutes passed, and it would start again, and the baby would cry again, and the mom again would go like, shh, shh, shh. So, I'm left with that, and I'm alone. So I start to feel something like pressure, like stress. The sound continues. I close my window, and I think that's enough, that's it. I closed my window, and that's when I realized that it wasn't the neighbor, it was inside my house. My room faced the stairs. It was right facing the stairs. So I opened my door, I looked down the stairs, and then I realized that, yes, it was inside my house, and there was someone going around in circles in the dining room, calming down a baby. Obviously, I felt super scared, like panicked, right? I went back to my room, and it was already like 7 at night, more or less. I returned to my room, I covered myself completely with the covers. And the person who was calming the baby starts to go up the stairs. And I could still hear that shh, shh, shh. She starts to go up the stairs, and my room was just in front of the stairs because it was impossible for me to confuse the sound of how the stairs sound. The sound came directly to me. I'm completely covered, and the person shuts up, right? She shuts up. I really didn't want to look out of the covers. I was in fear. She sits next to me. I feel the mattress sink a little bit. She lies down next to me, and I start to feel the sound of someone breathing. I start to hear it. No, it was a pressure and a stress, and I was like, what do I do? Do I turn around or not? What do I do, right? I stayed covered as much as I could until I stopped hearing the breathing. I think it was about maybe 20 minutes. I uncovered myself, I ran out, I didn't see anything again. I left the house and waited for my sister and my mom to return.
Pedro waits outside the condominium for about half an hour. When they return, Pedro is confused and scared, as the events that just transpired have no logical explanation. When they meet him outside, he seems confused and scared.
When they came back, the first thing I told him was, this happened to me. I was really very scared. And they began to put the story together, like this person lived here, they told me about this. And maybe at the beginning they didn't believe me or thought I was crazy.
The truth is that he did not tell me the story in detail, but he did look quite scared after all that. And then he began to tell me that he heard a woman approaching him. He was lying on his bed and she was breathing differently. I don't know. He turned around and there was no one. Just my mom and I were there, and we had just gone out to eat. And then we started to realize after all this we began to feel that things were not going well.
And then I took them to a place where the owner who told me the whole story. I told my sister and my mother to come with me. We went to eat there, and he told them the story. The story was that this guy who lived in the house was drunk or something, and in one of their fights, in a drunkenness or something like that, he hit the lady. They had a small baby, and he pushes the lady through a large window they had in the living room. From that day on, other things began to happen. Not so strong, but they continued to happen. I don't know, as if there were still signals that something wanted to communicate. I don't know, I really don't.
One day, my mom told us that when she got out of the shower, every day she would see in her mirror some hands that were imprinted on the mirror. Very, very strange.
Another thing that really impacted me was, for example, in my room, I had my own bathroom. Then suddenly I would finish showering, and in the mirror I would see marked hands. And then my mother would come and tell us, stop marking your hands in the mirrors and all that.
And then she grabbed our hands. We kind of measured it like this, and none of them matched. Neither my mother's, nor my brother's, nor mine.
I said, it wasn't me, Mom, so we put our hands next to the imprints, the three of us, and they wouldn't match with any of us.
And my mom always cleaned them. She cleaned the mirror, and the next day she would take a shower, and they would reappear.
It's clear to Pedro and his family that they are not the only inhabitants of the condominium. The situation becomes unbearable day after day, with the three of them constantly on edge. However, the disconcerting experiences continue, with the entity or phenomenon that has been following them daily, showing its unexplainable discontent once again.
Then once I remember that in my mother's room, which also had its own bathroom, there were some glass shelves, and at the top there was a cross on one of the shelves at the top. And one day we were just talking about what we had been experiencing. Hey, this happened to me, I've had dreams, like what's happening, right? There was already some stress. We used to ignore it at the beginning, but it started that day there was stress, right? And that day we were talking about it, and we said, hey, let's bring someone, maybe the lady hasn't rested in peace or something like that, and maybe bring a priest. And right at that moment, the three of us were gathered in my mother's room, and we heard how one of those glass shelves fell. We ran to the bathroom, and it was right where the cross was, only that shelf fell. It didn't break the others. It was a cross. I think it was a heavy enough cross to have broken the three shelves, but it didn't. They were just right into the shelf that broke, and the shelf is cut right where the cross was. And below that there were some contact lenses. So we opened the contact lenses, so we began to clean those lenses. They had been there for a while. We opened them. And one of the lenses became like a little bubble in the shape of a cross. I mean, it was something strange, right? That little bubble was made in the shape of a cross. And from then on we said, no, we have to do it right. So we talked about it between the three of us. Hey, this is really important. Just the three of us met. We brought holy water. We splashed that on the walls, and we prayed for her soul to rest, or if she had something to communicate to us, something that she wanted us to help her with, right? Seeing the religious part, that it might be a message that she wanted to give to us. And yes, we also took someone to the house. They poured holy water. We prayed. And nothing really happened. I felt it because of what I experienced, I imagine. But I felt a little stress. But really nothing extraordinary happened at that moment exactly. He told us to pray a lot, that they were normally people who suffered, and when they went to the other astral plane, right, when they arrive with Jesus, they have something pending, and they have to solve it. definitely, after that, we really said, no, you know what? It's very hard to live with this. And yes, it was a reason, one of the many reasons, and I think one of the stronger ones to move out of that house. And from that moment, your mind goes, it opens up a little bit more, right? And you start to perceive more certain things. And so from that day on, I've had some dreams that give me something to think about.
The multitude of experiences that Julia, her brother Pedro, and their mother endured in the condominium ultimately led them to sell the property and move after only 1 year. The psychic and physical phenomena were constant and insistent, to the point that even today, Pedro still has dreams related to the phenomenon. The experience of this family remains with us as proof of paranormal events that transcended their dimension and found their way into ours. What do you think?